Hello and welcome to Business Connections. I'm Holly Allen, Director of Marketing and Communications for the Dayton Area Chamber of Commerce. This is a program put on by the Dayton Area Chamber of Commerce. And today we're talking about a pretty cool topic. Deb Norris, Senior Vice President from Sinclair Community College, is here today. And we're talking about UAS, or drone technology, which is something that Sinclair has got on the bandwagon here very early on. It's been several years. You've been training students to fly drones. It's something that you've been at the forefront of. Can you tell us about why this has been such a focal point for Sinclair? How did you get involved in this?
Absolutely, and Sinclair's been very fortunate to get into this industry early, actually back to about 2007. And 2008, and part of that came about as if we remember back in those years in the Dayton region, we were facing a lot of tough economic times. NCR was departing, General Motors, and many of our large companies. And from an economic development perspective, there was a trade mission that went to Israel. And you had county leaders, city leaders, industry, academics, and we were able to, and people from Wright-Patterson Air Force Base and the Dayton Development Coalition. And we spent actually almost 2 weeks in Israel looking at the different technologies focused on unmanned aerial systems, because Israel is a leader in that area, and seeing how we could apply or how we could create partnerships maybe to bring that in to Dayton. Our perspective from Sinclair was if we build the workforce in this new and emerging technologies, that it would be a driver for economic development. It would be a reason for companies to want to come here. And when you look in Dayton's DNA, we are just ripe for unmanned aerial systems because we're really good at data analytics. We're really good at sensors. And when you think about what is an unmanned aerial system, right, it's about the technology of sensors and also about advanced materials. Also, we have Wright-Patterson Air Force Base here that is very, very active and have centers and directorates focused on sensors and unmanned aerial systems and so on. So when you kind of looked at what we had here, it was a great, great match.
So this wasn't something you just picked out of the sky. It was something that you looked at what aspects we have, what good features we have going on in the Dayton area, and picked a match for something to go after.
Strategically, it made a lot of sense. And also, when you look about Dayton, and aviation is it's in, we started aviation here, right?
Yes.
That's right. And what leaders in this industry will say is that unmanned aerial systems will actually revolutionize, right? They say this is actually the greatest technology since the invention of flight. And so as you think about that, that seems very appropriate. So let's put Dayton back on the map, right? Back to our roots of aviation, but now with this new technology called unmanned aerial systems.
And since 2007, that industry has changed drastically. We're sitting here now, Sinclair is in the news regularly about this industry. What does the future look like for unmanned aerial systems?
Well, when you think about unmanned aerial systems, we like to liken it to when the internet came out, right? And the personal computer came out. We knew it was big. We knew it was going to impact so much of the way that we live and the way that we work. And so what you're seeing are just a number of applications that are continuing to be developed. When you look at applications from a business perspective, again, we think a lot of the hobbyists, right, enjoy flying these and all, but when you look at it from a business perspective, we're going to see new applications continue to emerge. But those that have been, I think, probably the most well-known that we've seen in the news has been around first responders, right? So I can actually get this view with sensors today to find missing people, right? I can get a preview of how something looks at a traffic accident or at a fire. Precision agriculture is also, today in farming, it is so important that we have to, because we have less farmland than we used to. So it's all about the return on investment and how do I get more productivity with less land. And so precision agriculture is all about pinpointing, right, from this aerial view that farmers don't have, exactly where might I need more irrigation or where I might have an infestation problem.
It's amazing.
And so, because again, they're not really having those views today. Geospatial mapping is another one, bridge inspections, so railroad inspections, right? So it's like you want to kind of have that monitoring to detect with sensors today, you get not only the visual view, but you can do sensing in terms of, if there might be an oil or a gas leak. You look at monitoring of utility lines. We think about also sometimes you'll want to use unmanned aerial systems in something that might be dangerous. So wind turbines, we see a lot of those in Northeast Ohio. Well, people have to climb up there, right, to inspect them. Well, you could have an aerial view with a drone or a UAS, right, that would actually kind of save lives.
Wow. It seems like the opportunities are endless. I think for the everyday person, you think of UAS technology in the future, and you think about, obviously, Amazon talking about delivering packages to your front yard using a drone, but it sounds like there are so many applications that even beyond what we have thought of today, which is amazing that you're at the forefront of creating the workforce to operate this technology.
And one of the things when you think about unmanned aerial systems, people get really, really excited about flying them. And of course, you're not going to get the data if you don't fly them, right? But one of the things that you'll see and that we're doing a lot of work on is really around the data analytics. How do you actually not only capture the data, like with these different sensors, but then how do you present it? Because the reason a business is going to want to utilize a drone or a UAS, right, is to get information I didn't have access to before. Right. And then how might that help me better in my business?
Well, you talked about the investment that started in 2007. Sinclair has made drastic investments in this industry. Last summer of 2015, you opened Building 13, which is the training facility for UAS technology, and that was in the news. They reported that building alone was about a $5 million investment.
That is true.
So can you talk about that center and what it means to Sinclair's future in this industry and training the workforce?
So when we started this, we said that we would build a national center for UAS training and certification. And that was a lofty goal. But Sinclair, as we all know, it's a jewel in the community. We have other national programs. Our automotive has been nationally recognized many, many times. Our Center for Manufacturing, so we have other national recognitions. And so, but we also thought with that, we wanted to have a sense of place that was very important, like a destination place, if you will, in the heart of downtown Dayton. So what we did was we actually renovated an existing building, 28,000 square feet, and made that into kind of a UAS showcase. We also did something that no one else has done across the country yet, which is that Sinclair has long-standing had an aviation program. And that is also for maintenance, as well as for pilots and stewardesses and all that. But we integrated our aviation program with our unmanned aerial systems into one place. And because we feel that students coming in, right, that will help drive enrollment both for unmanned aerial systems and aviation because they're so closely related. But what our vision was to build a state-of-the-art facility. We were very, very fortunate in that we put a business case to the state of Ohio, and were awarded, and actually were seen as the top. We didn't get the most money because we only asked for $4 million, but
only $4 million.
But Ohio State got $40 million. If this gives you an idea on the capital.
That is only relatively.
So, but they gave us everything that we asked for. But we were profiled as the #1 project for capital across the state of Ohio for all community colleges and universities, and because they thought it was so innovative. So what we did was we took kind of a space that wasn't as used as much as we would have liked, and we have repurposed that facility to integrate our aviation and unmanned aerial systems. In addition to that, $4 million from the state, Sinclair put in $1 million. We also received about $1.5 million in donations that we actively worked and are continuing.
That speaks to the importance the community sees in this facility.
Right, and so that, again, if we have these capital assets, and so what happens when you walk into that facility, the state-of-the-art facility, the first thing that you see is one of a kind, what's called a UAS simulation lab. And we have partnered with 3 leading manufacturers and developers of simulation in UAS. Simlot from Israel, who we met on that very first trip, L3 out of Texas, and then Aegis. And what we've done is integrate those 3 systems, and we're even able to do things that no other organization has been able to do yet, which is integrate like our ground control stations when you fly these into simulation. So it feels that you're actually operating the real vehicle from that same ground control station as you're sitting in a simulation. We've had a wonderful partnership with the Air Force Research Lab, and they have developed customized software for us for our simulation on L3. So you walk in and you see this amazing simulation lab. It's got 10 student stations. It's an interactive with the faculty, and it's so the students are getting a very rich experience, hands-on. We also have an avionics and maintenance lab. It's where we kind of showcase. We've got about 150 UAS so far in our fleet.
It's amazing. I walked through the building, and there are just UAS systems. They're everywhere in that facility. It's amazing.
So, and what happens with that is students get that hands-on experience, right, in terms of repairing them, understanding, the components and the control systems and the sensors and interchange sensors on those, right? In addition, we also integrated additive manufacturing. Because as you think about with unmanned aerial systems, and you're hearing about additive manufacturing, and that's a big deal for the Dayton region, by the way, as well, because it's a very different way of manufacturing, right? Instead of, when we think about traditional manufacturing, it's almost subtractive. You start with something and then you whittle it down. Additive, you start and build from, you build it, if you will, in a kind of a repetitive process. Well, that's very good for kind of materials like plastics and some other, but we're looking also at metal. And when you look at, we've actually had students to build UAS, components on our additive manufacturing machines that are sitting there. So we put traditional manufacturing, we put a CNC lathe, we put a CNC, regular machine in there so that, again, our students will have that exposure. We have a wind tunnel. So the idea that I can now test different kind of wing dynamics and all in the building. Again, we've integrated our aviation program, so in our aviation maintenance program, so that, again, as we look to UAS maintenance, we already have our aviation program there that's been certified by the FAA for some time. We put our industrial maintenance program there, and also then some computer labs. And so, and lots of, I think metrology is another area that's in there. So it's a very holistic, and it feels like 28,000 square feet of big labs, right? That you can see things and feel things, and so that we prepare students coming out so they have a very, very holistic view.
So that's a real world experience.
Absolutely.
They're doing what they'll be doing when they get into the workforce.
That's right. And when you think about, again, the other thing, Building 13 just happens to sit on our data center. And so one of the things that you hear now from the simulation world is something called live virtual constructive. And what that lets you do is that it lets you fly live, if you will, right? But also simulate additional vehicles flying at the same time. Because the FAA has certain restraints now that we cannot fly more than one vehicle. And so the idea that simulation lets you do a lot of scenario planning and a lot of applied research around what ifs. And traffic patterns and all of that. So it's been really good because we are on, the ORNet is in that connected, which is Ohio's really big data pipe. So what that allows us to do from our simulation is push large volumes of data. So we're looking at doing some pilots with the Ohio State University, Indiana University. And so now this partnership, because we're going to be capturing data out there in the field, and so how do we look at it and then get that rich student experience? We're actually even looking about doing a live virtual constructive simulation with our partner Simlot in Israel. And sharing the data that way.
Go back to where it all began.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right.
You talk so much about the simulation, but we have seen in the news as well that Sinclair is cleared in many different locations to actually fly the drones that you have in your fleet. Can you talk about some of those places where you're flying and where your students are actually getting that experience?
Well, one of the things that we said when we were going to have a national center, we said we were going to have 3 pillars. And the pillars to have a national center, you have to be able to fly.
Right.
And that was going to be both indoor and outdoor, and I'll talk a little bit about that. The second was to have leading edge simulation, because sometimes, whether it's weather, you also want a rich experience in simulation that complements the flying. The third pillar was leading edge curriculum, by the way, that when we started this did not exist anywhere.
Wow.
And then we wanted to take those three pillars and build them on a strong foundation of data analytics.
Okay.
Because again, why do I fly a UAS? Is to get data to help me make better decisions. So we got into flying early, right? And so, and it was not an easy path at that time. We received the first, we were the first community college in the state of Ohio, actually in the country, to receive what was then called a public certificate of authorization. And we got that at Springfield, Ohio. And it took us about, 2 years to get that very first one. And there were a lot of restrictions that came with that, but it let us fly.
Okay.
And since that time, I believe we're up to right now 13 certificates of authorization. We fly at Ohio State University, Don Scott, which is the third busiest airport in the state of Ohio.
Wow.
And that's important. That is exactly right. But the idea is that we've pushed again with the FAA, because this is all being able to fly safely and legally. And so we have picked different spots to want to do different things and have a really strong portfolio of flying. Springfield Airport, when we started, had a tower. They have since closed the tower.
Okay.
And so now those ConOps come out of Columbus. So that's an experience, not having a tower. When we are at Wilmington, it is a control tower there. And Wilmington is amazing, again, because when we had AVX Air there, that is an incredible facility to be used for unmanned aerial systems. In terms of, I think our COA there is 4 miles by 5 miles wide. And so then when we think about Miami University, we fly at Oxford. Well, one of the reasons at Miami, they're very interested in doing a lot of research, particularly in sensors and avionics. So being at the Oxford Airport, we partner with Miami. We kind of help, we have the vehicles, we have the COA, and then we can fly research projects with them. What we liked about Miami was, the Miami Airport, was that they are 30 nautical miles from the Kentucky Cincinnati Airport.
Okay. And
you have to have special equipment to be that close to a major airport. And that gives us, again, another capability.
Right.
The thing that we were most excited about, though, was that we were the first community college in the country to be granted what's called a Section 333 to fly. That gave us a national footprint, so we can fly anywhere in the United States where you are allowed to fly UAS, if you will, and allows us, most importantly, to operate commercially. We can actually now, money can change hands. We can have commercial operations. What happened with the FAA, when you had a certificate of authorization or a public COA, it was meant to be for research. It was really not meant for commercial applications, if you will. So it was really important to us to have that Section 333.
Okay. You mentioned the FAA, and there has been a lot of movement in government oversight. I think the FAA is trying to figure out how to deal with this technology as it changes and evolves. How has Sinclair evolved with the FAA, and can you tell us about, I think there was some news recently from Sinclair about that relationship.
We were actually at the FAA last week.
And
this
is recent.
Very recent. Sometimes, like I said, when you're really proud of something that's happened. So the FAA, and you're right, over the last several years, I think they've struggled a bit with how to integrate unmanned aerial systems into the national airspace and do it safely.
Right.
And again, they're in aviation. This is a new disruptive technology that's coming at the FAA. And I would say that because safety was their paramount, that's why they are in existence. And so having this disruptive technology, they weren't exactly embracing it, I will say it that way. But when we were there last week, the leadership, it is a different message. This is not if we are going to do this. This is how can we do this.
Well, I think it's gotten to the point where you can't avoid it
from
anymore.
A commercial, economic development, a global perspective. We cannot let the rest of the world, be able to fly and test these things, because we will lose business.
Right.
So but the FAA came out, and we've been dealing with them for some time because of having all these different COAs, and Section 333. But the FAA announced about a year and a half ago that they were going to put out what was called an FAA Center of Excellence for UAS.
Okay.
They have all kinds of centers of excellence that exist today, but they didn't have one for UAS. And that is really around research.
Okay.
Research that can help the safe integration of UAS into the national airspace. So they, you had teams of universities that competed for that Center of Excellence, and it was very, very prestigious. Mississippi State won that. They were awarded last summer, I believe, and Ohio State, the Ohio State University, was actually asked to come on the team after they were awarded.
Okay.
And so when we met the Assure team, it's what it's known as, they were here for the Ohio UAS conference last year.
Okay.
While they were here, we had a chance to meet the director, and they came over to see Sinclair's facility. And it was a really interesting discussion because the 22 members that they have, or the 21 members that they had, were all universities. And they really weren't sure about a community college and the role that we would play. They came over, they saw the facility, and they were like blown away. They were just completely blown away with what we've done.
I can understand that.
So that we were invited to their next meeting. We were unanimously voted in by all of the university members. And we had a press conference here in January to announce that. So we're the only community college that is part of this FAA Center of Excellence for the research. So we are on a number of research projects right now, again, bringing expertise on the applied side, and different research projects that the FAA is kind of commissioning. What's also so exciting for us is that this is also driving the certification requirements for UAS that the FAA, we're right here in the middle of this as the FAA, we are making recommendations for those certifications. What that means to Sinclair, that we're going to have an early view of that.
That's amazing.
So we should be able to quickly respond with the FAA's required certifications and offer that to people across the country, and most importantly here in the state of Ohio and the Dayton region.
Congratulations to you.
Thank you.
And what a great honor to have right here in the Dayton area. If people want to learn more about what's going on at Sinclair and the UAS training technology, where should they go?
We've made it really easy. uas.sinclair.edu.
Oh,
and again, and there's a lot of our background. There's phone numbers on there. People have lots of questions. I think that we have all kinds of online courses that we offer, that intro to UAS. We make it really easy. We have a lot of courses around, how to go about getting a certificate of authorization or a Section 333. We do a lot of consulting work with companies across the country and locally as well. So I'd say, we're really, I think the Dayton region, we're fortunate to have an asset like Sinclair here. Let's take advantage of it.
Right, and it's a great resource, and so many people wanting to get involved.
That's correct, yeah.
Wanting to fly on their own,
Yeah.
and as things change, it's a great resource to have if people need information.
So the one thing I didn't mention was that I talked about this 28,000 square feet. Well, what we also opened on the, was it the date of the historic flight, right? With Orville and Wilbur. On December 17th, we opened our custom indoor flying pavilion.
Yes.
And so when you talk about our students being able to fly, this indoor flying pavilion, it has 40 feet ceilings. It has GPS capability within with all kind of a glass ceiling. It's 3,200 square feet. And we can set up different kinds of, like bring mock buildings in, or a cell phone tower and things like that. They can actually have it
fly around things.
That's right.
Objects.
And we have it. We have ground truth now because Wolpert came in and mapped it with LiDAR for us.
Oh wow!
They've been a great partner of ours. And so you have this amazing indoor flying pavilion, but we're also seeing a lot of the universities and also some of our partners at Wright Pat interested in using this for applied research.
Okay.
And so, but it's this amazing facility that is adjacent to Building 13. And it was one of those things, we got really lucky. The city, it was kind of one of these abandoned vacant lots. The city, I think, we got it for $20 or so.
Oh, wow.
I mean, right? And
It's a
now
good
we've turned it
investment.
into, and we talk about the importance of the core in downtown Dayton.
Absolutely.
And we've turned this into this now, again, this destination site that we will be bringing people from all over the country in.
It's a great facility. My tour, I was blown away to see what's going on over there at Sinclair, and we are just proud to have a partner like Sinclair in the Dayton area, and we're proud of what you're doing in workforce. I should mention, the Dayton Area Chamber, we talk a lot about workforce, and so we work with Deb very closely. In the UAS arena, the Dayton Area Chamber of Commerce launched the Dayton Area Logistics Association just last year, and so we've talked a little bit about UAS and how it's playing a role in the logistics and distribution industry. So that's something to keep an eye on as well. If you want more information about that, DaytonChamber.org, and of course you want to head online and check out what Sinclair's doing in the UAS arena. You can find more about Chamber membership while you're there as well, and make sure to follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube, as well as LinkedIn. Thanks so much for being with us.
This month's program is very topical for our region, as we've made a big push for commercial use of unmanned aerial systems, or UAS, sometimes referred to as drones. These systems, whatever nomenclature you use, are certainly a growing technology with many and varied uses, from military applications, private security, agribusiness, photography, sport, and thanks to the 60 Minutes television program on future uses by Amazon and other delivery systems, this will be a part of a growing conversation in the area of logistics and supply chain management. Our region continues to see good growth in the logistics industry. Probably started because of our manufacturing sector strengths, we also had to develop and grow ways to deliver our products to markets, first in the U.S., then globally. But with the improvements to rail, then highways, we became the crossroads of America with our I-70, I-75, north-south, and east-west connectivity. Then as air cargo grew, and yes, then declined in our area, we've seen changes, but mostly growth in the trucking, rail, and air logistics industry throughout the region. Names like Dayton Freight, Jet Express, Emory Air, DHL, and CSX led to distribution and warehousing names like Wind Supply, Payless, White Castle, Procter & Gamble, and many more. Logistics is big business in the Dayton region. The economic impact exceeds $2.5 billion in sales, over 20,000 permanent jobs, almost $900 million in employee payroll, and almost $30 million in state and local income tax revenues, now making it one of our top growth sectors for 2016 and beyond. Because of its importance to our economy and employers, the Dayton Area Chamber of Commerce formed the new Dayton Area Logistics Association in 2015. Our recent economic analysis, done by partner Wright State University's Center for Urban and Public Affairs, directed our chamber to establish an annual conference to promote and educate our business community, elected leaders, and citizens on the importance of this very important regional industry. Our first annual Southwest Ohio Logistics Conference will be held on Wednesday, January the 27th at Sinclair Conference Center from 7:30 a.m. to 1 p.m. and is open to everyone who wants to learn more about this growing industry and network with key employer leaders. This is another great reason why area employers know our chamber is the voice of business.